Every single day, people take unwanted or unused items to thrift and antique stores across the country. But as the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and we're here to prove it. Identify valuable things before you throw them away. Join us as we show and tell of treasures found and sold by a full-time reseller with the hopes of helping you find some treasures of your own. Welcome to the What's Sold podcast.
Welcome back to the What's Sold podcast. As usual, I am Brandon. This is my friend Matt. I'm not going to lie to you folks, but today we're moving a little bit slow. All the way around, it feels like it's only Wednesday because we record on Wednesday, but it feels, and this drop on Wednesday, so you can pretend it's live.
Yeah.
You could be listening to this going, oh, it's live. The guys are just talking to me live.
Yeah.
Through the magic of modern sound and whatever. So
Yeah.
But it feels like it's been a really long week already. Today is Ash Wednesday when we're recording. So, for those of you that follow the old school liturgical calendar.
The Lenten season?
Yeah, the Lenten season. We're getting ready for it. So Matt has to think about how he's harmed me, the things he's done to bring pain to my life. And, because that seems what
count
one
the
does
ways.
during... Yeah, count the ways. That seems like what one does during Lent. And I know Matt had a little bit of a medical procedure. He's not dying. He's doing well. He's a virile man, but it's never easy. Even when you do the simple outpatient stuff, it's always like, feels like it takes weeks to recover from it. But.
Extra virile. There's a what his name is, Donnie Benet. He's a musician, but I saw him recently, and he's a bald man, and he said something to the effect that I'm a bald man because I'm extra virulent, which I thought was hilarious.
Virulent, very virulent.
Yeah, I had a herniatic procedure, which, not pleasant, and not all of those require surgical intervention, but this one did. So, especially today, I've been moving around like I'm an 80-year-old man, and I'm not close. I'm not far off from that, but. I'm not quite there, so it's a little bit of pain, but trying to treat that and keep things iced down. And listen, it's not going to stop me from talking about buying and selling stuff.
That's right, man. We're out there buying and selling. I always say that you're getting old when you get injured in your sleep.
That's right.
The true sign of you're getting old is when you wake up, you're like, how did I tear my meniscus in the middle of the night? Whatever it is.
Yeah, and listen, I know that half the people who listen to this podcast don't like to hear the junk in the beginning, but I feel like I need to mention this. I have some cousins, and this is not a joke. These are my actual cousins. These are not Rusty's cousins, though they are probably Rusty's cousins as well. But because we always get on and talk about like, well, what would our name be? If we were in the arena, they suggested I adopt the moniker the Liquidator. Which I thought
like
was
that.
Great. My immediate mental image was I'm concealing some sort of a hose situation in my trench coat, and I just douse people,
With chemicals?
Well, I don't know with chemicals. It could just be straight water, but it's just meant to, particularly you aim for the face. Like you want to get the eyes. You want to disorient them as best as you can in the beginning. I feel like that's the only way I would win any fight in wrestling or anything else, is if I somehow get a cheap shot, disorient them in some way.
Throw dust in their face.
That's exactly right. Yeah. What I feel like there are definitely multiple movies where that happens. They're out there, the bad guy, of course, he gets knocked down, he comes up, he throws dust, some sort of like really...
chicanery.
You can't, yeah.
Dirty. He
Whatever
plays dirty.
Plays dirty. And I'm not beneath biting or whatever I need to do. You know what I'm saying? So anyhow, I want to throw that out. I appreciate the cousins, any family who listen to this and support, what we're trying to do here. It's awesome. Keep them coming. Keep those suggestions coming.
I think I'm stuck with Moondoggy because you gave it to me, but I do.
Hey, listen, I didn't give
like...
that to you. That's from college days, man. Isn't that's from when you were a disc jockey back in the day?
Yeah, back in the day. I was a disc jockey, actually.
That's what I'm saying.
Funny. Yeah, back in the college radio days, for sure. Excuse me. I feel like I would more likely be somebody like the Chatterbox, where you get in the ring and you just talk to somebody so much that they just eventually get out of the ring and leave.
Dude, you're the announcer. You're like the Vince McMahon. You're the guy who's out there, you're talking up the good guy. You're talking down the villain, and
Sunday.
That's
Brought
right.
to you by the good guys. Of course, lights, kids under 12 get in half price.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I don't want to be that guy, but
All right.
you know, with this. All right, so we were talking in as we are apt to do in our pre-production about things, you know, so we've talked a lot about obviously selling and buying and all the things, but one of the things we haven't talked a lot about, but is a reality of the job. I didn't even mention this to you, but yesterday I spent at least 5 hours dealing with customer service because I use a certain set of software, and I knew that it wasn't broken on my end. I knew that I wasn't doing something wrong because I use this all the time. So I'm like, well, something changed, and I'm like, okay, let's try to figure this out. So they send you to 7 million help desks and read this article and do this, and I'm like, I've done all this. Finally, get somebody. It turns out it was an actual issue with the software. This has happened to me twice in a month, and I got so frustrated. It burned up so many hours. I began to think about, like, what do we do when we run into difficult customer service, which I know you've run into with eBay, and also difficult customers that require a lot of our time. And I don't know if there's a perfect answer to this, but we're going to delve into that today in the show. So what do you do, Matt, when you sell an item? Pretty stoked about it. You feel like you've sent them, you're an honest guy. You've sent them what you thought you were sending them. And then you get the whatever, the litany of, I know you've talked about it in the past, people getting mad about stuff.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of different scenarios there. So there's the scenario of dealing with eBay directly, you know, their customer service. And then there's dealing with a customer. And then there's two things with the customer. There's dealing with a customer that has a complaint that's valid, or that you just need to kind of communicate with them to try to solve. And then there's the customer that it's pretty clear that they're trying to scam you or something nefarious is happening there from perspective. And so I deal with those differently. The explanation for eBay is pretty simple. If I need to contact eBay, and it's a simple thing, that I will try to work with the first customer service person that I speak with. I don't like doing that, though, because a lot of times, in my experience, they don't have a lot of power or control. Really, a lot of things are automated within eBay. A lot of the policies and processes are in place, and computer systems and things set up timetables when certain actions are to take place based on whatever the issue is. And the first line of customer service's job is really more to hear the issue and provide information to me or whoever it is about the procedures and what to expect and what's going to happen. They don't have a whole lot of power, very little power and control, I would say, over those processes as far as like making changes or changing the timetables or making decisions based on the information you're giving. They don't really have the power to do that. The people that do have the power to do that are the next...
Well, wait, Matt, before you go on to that, the people that have the power, it's also important for us to know that a lot of these help desk people are not actually employees of whatever company you're talking to. You'll notice at the bottom sometimes they'll say something like Zendesk. That is a contracted company that the people, and they're reading off of basically a list of things like when, if, then, this, right? So, oh, you have this problem here, let me send you this article. Most of those people are perfectly lovely people, but they have absolutely they don't really know any more than you do. And in fact, most of the time they know less than you do. So just keep that in mind when you're, and I don't mean that pejoratively, I just mean that sincerely, like they're not doing this every single day. So they're not deep in the weeds like you are when you're dealing, you're like, wait, no, eBay has the blah, blah, blah. They're just like reading off of a list of a script. So be aware of that. It's not that you can't get help from them, but be aware that they're not actually, most of the time, employees of the company.
I totally agree. And there are many times when I can tell the person hearing me is, I don't want to say that they feel bad for me, but they recognize that the issue is a problem. And they're even frustrated that they can't help me in some ways. And maybe even they don't believe themselves that the thing they're telling me is actually going to take place. But that's that's the prompt. That's where they're supposed to take me in that conversation. So a lot of times I will ask to speak with someone on their management team, and that sometimes works. Other times they'll say, no, it's the escalation department I need to speak with, or it's the the restrictions department. It's some other department. How much of that is a smokescreen and how much of that is, I don't know, because I don't work within eBay. I can only go off of my own experiences, and I've had to speak with them many times. I don't enjoy it because it usually takes multiple phone calls, a lot of time to get to the bottom of things, and so that's not fun. But if it gets to a point where you're having an issue with a customer or something that doesn't have to do with the customer, it's more some sort of systemic issue that you're having that has to do with the eBay system, then you do need to talk with eBay. You need to give them a call. But when it comes to customers, when it's somebody that I think is trying to defraud me or something like that, or it's not a pleasant conversation, or there's some sort of conflict there that doesn't seem like I'm going to be able to resolve just through normal communication with them. A couple of things. One, I make sure that my communication with them, and you should do this anyways. I think it's common sense, but I'm just going to say it. You should be as pleasant as possible in your communication with them, not only because you're more likely to get things resolved when you behave that way, but because that is documented in eBay's system. So if a conflict does not get resolved and you require assistance from eBay, you want to be everything that's documented in the communications, which is in their system, their messaging system. You want to show that you're doing your all that you can do to help that person, and that you're not being baited into some sort of argument or something like that, because that is one of the tactics that people who try to manipulate you through eBay systems sometimes and through the transactions on there, they will make threats at times. They will be very harsh, and they're trying to get a rise out of you. They're trying to get you upset so that you'll get on and say some things that they can then use against you when they communicate with eBay, right? And it's a tactic. It's a really skeezy thing to do, but it happens.
So you think they're doing that on purpose?
I do. I don't think that at times it may be impulsive, behavior by them, but I've encountered enough of it to see the signs, and it seems calculated, right? It seems calculated. And that's just my assessment. I may be incorrect on that, but I do believe that there are people who do that. And I've read enough things online of other people encountering things that have encountered the same issues to know that is something that happens. So I would say if you're ever going to need to deal with eBay and they're going to go and access those communications to see what has transpired and see if that matches your account of what happened, you want it to match, and you want to be taking the high road when it comes to that. So you want your communication to be pleasant, even if you're frustrated and it can be an annoying thing. But when I deal with someone like that, when it gets to the point where I realize that no amount of communication with them is really going to resolve this, I'm going to reach out to eBay preemptively before it becomes a major issue, and I'm going to get their guidance, and I'm going to ask them, they're supposed to do this anyway, but I'm going to ask them to document this specific thing. Document the fact that I'm saying that they're threatening me. Do you see the aggressive tone? Do you see the things that they're saying? I want that documented in my communication with eBay, and I want to get their guidance. That way, even if what oftentimes the direction, the guidance that eBay customer service gives me ends up being not correct, or what they say is going to happen doesn't happen, I can come back and say, hey, look at what has happened in this communication. Look what the previous service agent documented, what they told me was going to happen. It didn't happen. And look, I was reaching out as a seller. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I'm following eBay's policies, and I just need some assistance from you. I want them involved. I want to be there talking with them preemptively, because I don't want this other person to be doing that, right? Because I want to win this case or this dispute, whatever it is. So I get involved with eBay very quickly when it comes to that. Now, in a situation where it's something more benign, like someone's reaching out and saying, and this has happened this week, hey, this item hasn't arrived. Why is it taking so long? Okay, so I go in, I look at the tracking, and sure enough, it's been like a week and a half. I shipped this thing. It's supposed to go to Arizona. It's been a week and a half. It's in Colorado somewhere. Why is it in Colorado? I don't know. What's going on, U.S. Postal Service?
Yeah,
so I
US
respond to
Postal
them and I
Service.
say, I am so sorry. Purchased this item on February 3rd. I shipped it, as you can see, in added tracking on February 25th. So within 2 days, I shipped the item. That's within my shipping, time period. I wasn't delayed in getting it fulfilled for you. I see in the tracking that's in Colorado. I'm so sorry. I don't know why it's taking so long. If you can give it another day or two, let's see what happens. Also, I'll go and check in with the U.S. Postal Service and see if we can find out what's going on here. There is a way that you can go into the U.S. Postal Service website, and I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's something like find missing package or something like that. And so you go in and they've got a series of questions. They want you to put the tracking in there and that sort of thing. And they're going to do something extra. Like there are people or systems in place that are going to specifically search for that item and or reach out to the location where it's at and be like, hey, why is this in a completely separate state? It's been a week and a half. And they should get back. In some cases, they might call you. You can also call the U.S. Postal Service. There's a phone number, and you can get and talk with a person, and you can give that information over the phone, and they will help you search for it. So I've had good experiences with the Postal Service doing that. They don't always find the package, but they are available to help. They are pleasant. They recognize that happens sometimes. So when it's something like that, I will work with them. They're not trying to hurt me in any way. They're just like, I paid for this. Where is it? And I'm in the same boat. Like, I want them to get it quickly. So I'm going to work my best to help them out. They're not being a difficult person. They're just simply wanting answers. And that is the most common thing. I have people who reach out. Sometimes,
wait a second. What is eBay's policy on? Like, you have no control over the U.S. Postal Service.
Yeah.
So you followed the procedure. You did it within 2 days. What's sort of eBay's policy on that? If the package is lost or what happens, you just have to refund the money.
I will have to refund the money, hopefully, because it's also not eBay's fault, and it's not within their power to correct that issue either. Like, they can't force that item along, magically to the person faster. So yeah, it's up to me as a seller to kind of figure out how to resolve that. If it's refunding them, I'm going to have to do my due diligence then to contact the Postal Service. And most of these packages, like if I send something priority mail or something, they usually come with $50 or $100 insurance. And that, for most of my items, the majority of my items, that's sufficient to cover it. So if they have in their system the tracking's there, they know when it left, it's just showing like it's on its way to the next facility. Like you see that a lot, like on its way to the next facility, day after day, and it just sort of lost. It's sort of in limbo. You can put in a claim, and that insurance should cover that. But it's a lot of legwork.
To get paid out?
Oh, it completely depends, man. It completely depends. It depends on how quickly you initiate that, case with them. But I want to try to go in and make things right with the buyer as fast as possible, because if I don't, they have the ability to hurt my store in the sense that they could leave me a negative review, for example, and say, yes, I see that they shipped it, but they did not help me. They didn't do anything. They didn't communicate promptly. I just wanted this item. I didn't have a good experience with this seller. And that can affect the metrics within the eBay system that hurts your store. Also, any other potential buyers can read your negative reviews, and that might cause them to not be interested in buying from you. Don't feel like they can trust you, even if it's not your fault. So most of the time when people contact me, it's usually about the speed of when the item's going to get there. It's very transparent on my eBay store and in items that I have a 3-day shipping window. Sometimes people, I would say, are impatient. They'll buy something and not even 24 hours later, they'll be like, why hasn't this shipped yet? Can you please tell me when this is going to ship? I need tracking immediately. And
right.
I get on and I say, hi there, thanks for reaching out. I have a 3-day shipping and handling window. I will ship it within that period of time. I endeavored to ship this faster than that even, whenever I'm able. And it just sort of depends on the volume that I have to ship at any given time. I'm just one person. I will certainly appreciate your patience. And I promise that as soon as I get this shipped, I'm going to add tracking. And I'll do everything I can to get that to you promptly. That's the kind of message I give them. And sometimes they're like, okay, thanks for letting me know. Other times they're like, that's unacceptable. I need this, this is a gift for somebody. I needed it by this date. And I'll say, okay. I mean, I'm thinking, well, why didn't you say that to me ahead of time? Or why didn't you reach out to me before you bought it and say, I'm buying this as a gift. Is there any way that you can ship this the next day or as quickly as possible? The other thing that I encounter a lot of times is people purchasing something and then after the fact saying that they want to have a shipping discount. Let's say that they buy something. There are multiple items in one order. They don't ask me about, and I give shipping discounts. What I usually say is, hey, if you're going to buy multiple items, please wait to pay, and then I will give you a combined invoice. But I even have people who, no joke, 2 or 3 weeks later, okay, after they've purchased it, long after I've sent it, it's not even in my mind anymore, they'll come back and say, hey, I really want a shipping discount. I want you to reduce my shipping because I bought multiple items. And in that case, I'm just like, yeah, I can't. I'm not really going to do that. This is already.
Is there a mechanism
fulfilled.
to do that?
I can.
Oh,
about
you could.
About any given time, I can go in and I can initiate a full refund or a partial refund.
Ah, I see.
And
So it'd be a
sometimes
refund, not a discount in the sense of when they paid, you give them 5% off or 10% off. You actually have to submit a refund to them.
I will submit a partial refund, and as a part of that process, the system will ask you what's the reason for the refund, and you can give. It has multiple options. It could say something like, one just says other adjustment. So, that's basically saying, I'm not going to tell you why. I'm just giving them a refund. Shipping discount is one of the options, and that's what I would select in that case. And so the problem that I've found, and I only discovered this recently, is that if someone buys, let's say, 4 items from you, and they pay for all of them individually. They don't wait for you to combine the shipping, meaning that they would all go in the same order and have the same tracking, and I would send them in the same package. If they buy 4 different items and I want to send them together, I can only add tracking to one item, one transaction, because the other 3 are going in that same package. And eBay's system won't allow you to put the same tracking number on multiple items. So from eBay's perspective in their system, it looks as though I've only shipped 1 item and that 3 items are outstanding, that I have not fulfilled that transaction. And I've been selling since 2000 on eBay. So 25 years I've been selling. I was just told this by someone within eBay in the last month. So I don't know if this has always been true or if I'm just now hearing this, but I've never had a problem with this. But recently I had some hold restrictions on an account that I had to do a bunch of legwork to try to resolve. And through that process, I discovered that if you have a situation like that where you have few items that don't have tracking assigned, even if you've sent them in a total package, that the eBay system will they can put holds and restrictions on your account because from the system looking at your account, it appears as though you're not fulfilling orders that you're supposed to and that they're outstanding.
Wait a second. Is this the reason why you went through so much grief lately?
That is one of the things that I discovered.
Okay, so wait a second. So, this is I got so many questions.
Yeah.
I literally have so many questions I can't even think. Number one is, so eBay has been doing this forever.
Yeah.
Like Amazon does this all the time. Well, they'll ship, in one box, and you'll get all in one box, but you'll get separate orders. Why can't eBay do that?
Well, there is a way, but I like to be the one who decides how much of a discount I'm going to give on an order, right? Because if let's say that I have one item that's small, and I know it's going to cost maybe $4.90 to ship.
Yeah.
Right? That's just what it's going to cost. And then a person buys 4 items, but they're all the same size. And I know that the weight of all of those, it isn't going to be any more than $5. Like I can ship all of that for $5. There's no reason why I should charge them $5 per item because they're facing $20 in shipping if they bought 4, right? Unless I discount that. So I want to be able to get on there and give them a discount. I want to reduce that down to $5. But there's also a time when, let's say I have 4 items for $1.99 each, or way of resolving that now is to go ahead and fulfill every item individually so that every item has an individual tracking number, and then I have to go in after the fact and send them a partial discount, a partial refund as a shipping discount. It's more legwork for me. It's annoying, but if I don't do that, I could potentially face restrictions on my account because the system thinks that I haven't shipped those other items. So it's super annoying. I don't know exactly why they do that, but I've never had issues until now, 25 years. So either that's a change or it just somehow I've never faced the negative consequences of that happening, within my account until now.
It is amazing to me, especially with how much AI is involved with everything now.
Yeah.
That is not a box tick on eBay. Like, it is not hard to create a system that would do that and would it's just not. We're not talking about, cold fusion here. We're talking about keeping track with a computer and having an algorithm to set. It's amazing. That
Well, I
blows
used to
my mind.
have some automated shipping discount things set up in my store, but I found that by doing that, the eBay system was incorrect too often, meaning they would discount it and too much, and then the shipping, it wasn't accurate. You see what I'm saying? But I ship these little items, 100 orders a week kind of a thing, and so even when I'm out looking at things to source, I know exactly how much it's going to cost to ship it before I even buy it. I already know because of the size and the weight. I know it better than the eBay system knows it, even though they're connected to, the U.S. Postal Service. I buy all of my labels through eBay, and it does give me a discount by doing that because they have some sort of arrangement with the U.S. Postal Service that if you buy it through eBay, it's cheaper than if you just take it into the post office. But kind of taking this full circle, a lot of times the issues I have are pretty simple when people come and I have a difficult, quote unquote, a difficult person. Most people aren't difficult. Most people are just looking for information or wanting updates from me. And that's easy. Hey, sometimes I buy things and it takes a week to ship and I reach out and just say, hey there, I'm just checking to see. I see that the label was created, but it hasn't. That's another thing that sometimes people will do to buy them more time to ship something is that if you create the label, if you purchase the label through eBay, it shows as shipped. It hasn't actually been shipped yet. It's not actually shipped and in transit until it's at the post office and some post office representative scans it into their system. So sometimes you could buy something and maybe immediately that day it shows it's shipped. A tracking number is added. Then you wait 5 days and you look at it and it says awaiting pickup from Postal Service or waiting drop off. That means that they've created the label, but they've not taken it to the post office yet. And that bought them time. It looks like they're working on it, but they're not. And so in that case, I reach out and just say, hey, I can tell you've created the label. It hasn't been dropped off at the post office yet. Can you give me a timetable on when it's gonna happen? And I think it's a fair question. And if people ask me that, it's a fair question. I need to give them a respectful response and be prompt about it. That's just all one of those parts about trying to run a good business and something that people can trust so that they come back and that you can have repeat buyers.
Yeah.
Kind of a
Can
thing.
I posit a conspiracy theory that I'm sure is absolutely wrong? But
whether I want you to or not, I think you're about to do it.
I am about. It seems to me that eBay is more interested in the part-time seller, i.e. somebody who's just selling once a year or twice a year. They must know, because they have all the data, that they make more money off of those people than they do off of you. Because it doesn't, like, the fact that they don't have these multiple tracking numbers and the systems in place. Now, I could be wrong. It could just be the way that it's just, I don't know. They haven't invested in this, whatever. But it seems crazy to me to think that a massive shipping company does not have a better system in place for people like you. That just seems, something's weird.
It can't be that they make more money from someone who sells less volume because, if things continue this year as they have so far in this first quarter, I'm going to do somewhere around $250,000 in gross sales on eBay this year. And with that volume of sales, eBay is going to make somewhere, the U.S. Postal Service, let me put it this way, will earn somewhere around $25,000 to $30,000 from me. And eBay takes 13.5%. So whatever 13.5% is of $250,000 is what eBay is going to earn from me using their platform. And that's not including the monthly payments I pay them as subscription fees. It's also not including any other fees that I would incur if, say, there were restrictions on my account for some reason. Because if you don't follow their kind of baseline protocols, or if you don't keep your metrics at a certain level and you go below standard on your store, they have punitive measures in place where they will take a higher percentage of your sale. And this is, so here I'm just gonna make one tiny complaint. This is what eBay will do. And there's a number of reasons why and it's not necessarily could be your fault, but there are a number of metrics and reasons why your account could fall below a certain certain point. It could simply be because you have a higher number of returns in a particular month. And they may all be stupid returns, like I just didn't like it, which you're not even supposed to be able to return something if you just don't like it, but eBay allows that to happen. So if a bunch of people return something in a month, it could make your stats drop to the point where you're below standard. And they don't review that until once about every month. So for the next 30 days, if it hits that point, anything that you sell, they can take a higher fee from your sales. And the only way that you can improve your store is by continuing to sell more items so that the percentage of items that sold or the percentage of transactions bring you back above that baseline that you need to get above. So they force you to sell more items to get back to above standard. And every one of those items that you sell, they take a higher percentage fee from. So you're being punished, essentially, for something that may not even be your fault. And it may be. But so this is one of the reasons I have multiple eBay stores. If they put a restriction on my account, I don't like that. The last thing I'm going to do is sell a bunch more items on there so that you can take more of my money, eBay. That's ridiculous. I'm going to start selling on one of my other stores more. And I'm just going to let that one ride until it naturally comes back up above. I'm not going to sell. Why am I going to be incentivized to sell more items for you to take more of my money? That's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? So it's I don't know. It's kind of a dumb thing. I don't like that, but that is a measure that they have in place.
I just don't understand how a multi-billion-dollar company that's been in business for a long time, that sort of started the platform in a sense, has these policies in place that I would love to. I know it's never going to happen, but man, would I love to have an eBay analyst on to talk about what's your thinking on this.
Well, the more you
they
sell,
had to tell a truth serum.
Of course,
or they had to tell you the truth.
Exactly. Well, the more that you sell, the more money you can earn. That's kind of obvious. But the more transactions you do, the more complicated the process becomes, and the more problems you encounter. Statistically, the more you sell, the more people come and try to rip you off. More people try to defraud you. More chances and potential for your store to have holds and restrictions put on them. So it's actually more ideal for a part-time seller to sell on eBay because you don't make as much money, but also you don't have to deal with as much as the complications and the problems that you can encounter with the system when you're not doing it. So it's a bummer. And we've already talked at length about how eBay primarily supports the buyer in transaction disputes over the seller, which also is really frustrating for a seller. I also buy on eBay, but I do way more selling than I do buying. And so if there are disputes and transactions in a transaction, I am way less likely to win that, regardless of what it is. Because, and that's, again, the reason why I need to be as respectful as possible in my communication. I need to reach out to eBay as fast as possible because I am going to be in a better position to potentially have that case cited in my favor if I'm being preemptive and communicative with both the buyer and with eBay about that dispute.
It strikes me, not just with eBay, but with lots of these companies, where there really needs to be different level or tiers of customer. I was mentioning that software that I use. I am pretty sure that I'm in the top 5% of people that use this software in terms of the amount of time in the software. So it feels like there should be a tier that says, oh, this guy's clearly been doing this for a long time. He knows about this. We're going to sort of ratchet him up to level whatever. Same thing with eBay. It seems like, well, Matt's been selling for a long time and they know the data. I just don't understand why that doesn't make sense for them to care more about you than not care more. You know what I'm saying? Here's
what I think. One thing I've thought for a long time is that there should be a monetary threshold, I believe, for a seller, that if you sell at that mark or above, you should have a direct phone number to one person, a customer service person that is your customer service agent. You don't have to go through the ridiculous stuff on their system to just get a hold of somebody to talk. If I don't know what it is, $100,000, whatever it is, you should have direct access to a customer service person. Because if eBay is making so if you sell $100,000, $13,500 of that goes to eBay. They take 13.5% on average.
Right.
How many people could one customer service agent represent, do you think? Like, how often would I have to call in? You know what I mean? Like maybe once a month. They could have dozens, maybe 100 different people that they represent, and that's one full-time job. And if every single person they represent is $13,500 that eBay made, you could have, eBay could have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 of earnings, and they only have to employ one person to be that customer service agent. And what are they paying them? 40, 50 grand a year?
Yeah.
Like it monetarily should make sense, and yet they don't do that. And that's really
aggravating. There's got to be a reason. I imagine that we won't get into late stage capitalism here, but I got to imagine to some degree that eBay knows it can do this without that. And it knows that it can, because they're not dumb. They're obviously been in business for a long time. People that work for eBay in the C-suite level understand the process. They simply, perhaps it's about stock value.
Well,
Who
if they
knows?
make it
And
make it easier, they will have more calls. I mean, I think it's that simple. If they give you direct access, you will take advantage of it. And they don't want you to take advantage of it because the more advantage you take of their customer service, the more they're going to be on the hook for having to resolve things
5 a month.
and pay out stuff. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Limit it to 5 a month. There's a way to do this, but
there should be.
You know what? I didn't even know if we could get through the whole show. We're not even at the point where we've talked about what's sold. But I did want to. One last thought is: were all the packages that are lost by the USPS? I kind of imagine they end up in like the land of misfit toys, where there's like some weird USPS sort of mythical creature that hoards these treasures. Mm-hmm. They got to end up somewhere, right? I mean, where do they end up anyway?
Well, I mean, there's enough of them for them to have a king lion with wings on the island, right? Like, that's how he's financed, is all of those lost USPS packages.
Yeah, he's got his wings.
Yeah, what's his name?
Wings don't come cheap.
I can't remember
I don't remember, but yeah, I do know. It's funny. Every year we watch that. So we're going to talk about the customer side of this on a later show because we sort of run up against time.
Yeah.
But I did want to talk about what you sold this week. I know you've got a lot of stuff, so let's do that now as we close out the show. What did you sell this week?
Wonderful, yeah. Several things. I'm a little slow to getting them fulfilled because because I'm kind of healing from my recent medical issue. And so I've put my store on pause, meaning I can still list items, but I'm not obligated to ship them until the end of my time away is what they call it, time away from the store. But I did pull a few things up here. I'm going to show you 4 different orders. 2 of them involve pocket knives. And so this is like a great example of the types of things I love to sell. Something that's small, can fit in your pocket, and is pretty highly collectible. They talk about sell-through rates, which is the percentage of items that sell in a particular category every 90 days. And the higher the sell-through rate, the higher percentage of the things that sell, means just the more collectible it is and the more valuable and the more that the public wants that item. And so this is a little old pocket knife. It's probably from the 90s or 1960s. The blades are kind of rusted. I don't even know the brand because it's so rusted I can't actually see it. Usually it's down by right at the bottom of where the folding knife pops out. It could be cleaned up. The blades are in decent condition even for its age. And it involves, like, the handle is antler. So like a deer antler. It's been carved and put in as a piece of metal along with the metal. And it's very typical of pocket knives from that age. So this sold for $24. That's pretty good. This is actually something that someone gave me to sell for them, so I didn't pay for it. But this is the kind of thing that I would have paid up to $3 to $5 for if I saw it at a thrift store or an antique store. Another lot is sort of similar, 2 pocket knives. One has 2 blades, the other one has 1. And in this case, I do see the brand, so those are visible on here. One is probably within the last decade or 2. The other one they're both wooden handle with metal. The other one has a number on it too, so that would be like a model number. So there are a lot of people out there who collect. There are a lot of collectible pocket knives, right? And almost every lot of pocket knives or even individual pocket knife I put up sells within a month typically. So they're really good. So these 2 sold for $22, so not as high, but they're also not super collectible or uncommon. They're just...
What brands are they?
So one, Valor, Valor. It's the Super Sport model. That's the newer one. And then another one is a Universal. It says L, F, and C. So that would be, the initials for whatever the company brand is. Model number is 2247. I don't know what that brand is. I looked it up initially, but I don't remember off the top of my head what it was. But it didn't, I put it in a lot because if a knife doesn't seem like it's worth more than $10 or so, I'm not going to sell it individually. I want more money out of that, so I'm going to put it with a small lot so that it just doesn't make sense time-wise for me to be just shipping a bunch of $10 items. You know what I mean? So that's why I put it in there.
Yeah.
The next couple of items are also in the same category. They are these little bracelets, and they are antique. This is from like the late 1800s, early 1900s. The end of them almost looks like clasps that would be on a pocket watch chain or fob, and they are what appear to be just sort of like twisted rope. And then in the center, they have a little gold-filled piece as well. And to people who don't know about mourning jewelry, and I don't mean like the morning when you get up, but I mean like mourning the loss of someone who has passed away. In the Victorian times, there was a lot of jewelry that was made to be worn by people who had lost a loved one. And it was very common for people to wear jewelry that involved a piece of that person, like literally a piece of that person. And in this case, it's hair. So the what looked to be twisted rope is actually someone's hair. And this was so common, in fact, that you didn't even have to send this off. In some cases, you would send the hair. The coroner or someone who was present when the person passed away would cut as much hair off as they felt like they needed before they were taken to be buried, and they would either send it off to a company that did this, or you could purchase kits where these metal pieces came, and then there was instructions on how to weave this or create this. So people in their own homes would take let's say a woman's husband died. She would take his hair, and she would sit there like she was knitting something, and she would make this bracelet or this necklace, and then she would wear it. It's also common for like, there are even rings that have hair around the ring, gold rings, solid gold rings, but they incorporate hair. A lot of times there'll be lockets that on one side of the locket, as like a pendant, it'll have the person's photograph, and on the other side, a lock of their hair. And this was very common. They wore this around. It's not culturally normal or acceptable today for people to do that. People find it very creepy and gross and weird. But at that time, it was a way for them to remember them. It was a way for them to mourn that loss. And that was just a thing that people did. So these two both sold. They sold for about one sold for $70. The other one sold for $75. These are gold-filled pieces of metal. Some people buy these to collect them. Some people buy them, and if it's solid gold, they just harvest the gold and melt it. People aren't really buying them to wear, I don't think.
Do they know that they're haunted, Matt?
Well, that actually would explain some of the weird noises around the house lately. But if you find a piece of mourning jewelry, they oftentimes incorporated the color black. So if there are, say, cameos or things that are black, that's usually a mourning jewelry. If there's a stick pin that has agate or a dark black stone, that was probably worn as a mourning jewelry piece. And like I said, you can find rings, brooches, pins, pendants, all of that. If you ever find something like that, though, you should test it, because there are things in solid 14, 18, 22 karat gold, cameos and things that are around glass, around the hair. And so they can have value in the gold, not just historical value. And the last thing I'm going to show is a lot of, I would call them semi-precious gemstones. This is a combination of rough cut gemstones that may or may not have holes drilled through them to be, for people who make jewelry. Others are very rough, meaning they've just been pulled out of the ground and they are something that you could cut or use in jewelry, but they've not been, nothing's been done to them yet. And then there are even facet cut gemstones in this lot. I say semi-precious, we're talking about things like turquoise, malachite, what do we got in here? Agate, amethyst. We've got some North Carolina rubies that I personally found while out. And so this lot, whenever I have these, I acquire and sell periodically gemstones from high value, larger diamonds and sapphires, rubies, things like that, emeralds, all the way down to these lower quality ones. And things that are lower value, I'll put in a lot like this and sell. So this was on auction for 7 days. It sold for $250.
Nice.
That's decent, but that's certainly worth it. If you're a jeweler and you want to get some authentic stones to put into jewelry. This is the way a lot of people do that, amateur jewelers and things. So it's great. I can move some of that stuff and but higher quality things, facet cut gemstones that you could immediately put in a ring or something like that. I'll try to sell those individually. I'll put the carat weight. I'll give them the millimeter diameter and give as much information as possible. But with this, it was just photographs. Hey, this lot includes this variety of things, and just look at the pictures to see what you're getting.
Cool. That's awesome. I was thinking about, that's just one more example of where you collect these things and put them in a lot.
Yeah.
And probably you've already made your money back from the original purchase.
Exactly. Most of these came in like rock or mineral collections that I purchased and have sold off in parts. I wait till I have a decent amount that I want to put in a lot together. Otherwise, I'm selling them individually. But it all depends. So I wasn't real concerned about how much I made in this. These aren't terribly valuable. I was happy with that sale. But yeah, I mean, all in all, probably $50 to $60 was what was in this, and likely I have nothing in it at this point because I've sold enough from those other lots that they came in to where all my money is back to me.
Right. Well, we are out of time, so I will say remember to follow, like, and subscribe, write a review if you get a chance. Any last words, Matt, for us before we head out?
Yeah. Don't get a hernia.
Yes, and
because
Matt, please heal
they're
quickly.
Not pleasant. That's right.
Yeah. And we will pick up where we left off on difficult customers, but the first part was so much that we ran out of time. So anyway, we will be back with a brand new show next week. We hope everybody has a great week.
Take
Please
care,
send us
everyone.
an email and let us know what's going on. Otherwise,
Thanks.
Have a great day.